We're all set to go. Welcome to AFA Talks and happy Veterans Day. And thank you to all those that have served our great country, the United States of America. We honor all the veterans and their families for their sacrifices and commitment to protecting our freedoms. We especially honor those that have given the ultimate sacrifice to our country. Imagine yourself as a child hiding in the attic of your home in Kosova during the brutal ethnic cleansing of 1999, or growing up in an Albania ruled by Enver Hoxha's iron-fisted communist regime, or being a first-generation Albanian-American, watching your immigrant parents beam with pride as you're sworn into elected office in your local community. These are the lived experiences of our three guests on this fifth episode of AFA Talks. Together, they represent the next generation of civic leadership, living proof that our past does not define our purpose or our limits, but rather our purpose. Stay with us for a powerful conversation about how struggle, identity, and opportunity can shape a life of service. My name is Dr. Renis, board member of Albanians for America, and I'll be hosting today's show alongside my co-host, Alana Senai, our AFA intern. Alana will manage questions and answers portion of the show. To participate, click on the Q&A icon on Zoom. She'll either bring you on live or ask your question on your behalf. I want to welcome our guest today. Ren Nushaj is an attorney, author, and candidate for Michigan State Senate District 9 with over 15 years of legal experience. As city attorney for Clawson, Michigan, and co-founder of Troy Law Center, Renis has built a career rooted in public service, civic advocacy, and community empowerment. His leadership reflects a deep commitment to integrity, inclusion, and giving back to the community that shaped him. Gino Mulliqi serves as mayor pro tem of Wiley, Texas, and is the first Albanian-American elected official in the state of Texas. A public servant, entrepreneur, and community advocate, Gino is dedicated to strengthening civic engagement, promoting cultural unity, and advancing U.S.-Kosova relations through leadership and collaboration. Sokol Delisi is the village clerk of Lincolnwood, Illinois, and the youngest elected official in the village's 103-year history. A proud first-generation Albanian-American, Sokol has built his public career on transparency, innovation, and community engagement. With a background in political science and project management, he represents the next generation of civic leadership in local government. Welcome to you all.
Thank you, Doc.
Much for having us.
Thanks for having us, Doc.
Thank you. Renis, let me start with you. Tell our audience a little bit about your background and the office you're running for.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for having all of us and for doing this very important conversation. I truly appreciate it as an honor. As you indicate, and I couldn't have said it better myself. I couldn't have introduced myself better than you did already. I am an attorney. I am a municipal lawyer. I represent one of our communities here in Michigan. I've lived in Michigan all my adult life, obviously, and I have my entire time in Michigan has been in and around the community that I'm now running to represent, which is Senate District 9. That includes a series of cities: Troy, Rochester, Rochester Hills, Sterling Heights, all wonderful community. This is where, coincidentally, and not perhaps coincidentally, our fellow Albanian Americans live in droves in the state of Michigan. And it's a wonderful community. It requires leadership because it has been lacking leadership for some time. And it would be my honor and it would be a privilege to do so going forward.
This is your first time running for office?
It is. I represent, obviously, my community, community that you indicated, the city of Clawson. I represent them as an attorney, but that is not an elected position. Of course, though, so somebody asked me a question similar to that not too long ago, said, have you ever run for office? I haven't run for office, but I did run in law school for Moot Court, which was one of the organizations in law school. And I did win on that one. So I think my track record is pretty good.
There you go, 1-0.
1-0.
Let's make it 2-0.
That's right.
So when is your election? You have a primary, and you have challengers, and when is the general? And well, the general is going to be November 5th of this coming year, I guess, right? Next year.
Precisely. It'll be November of 2026. The primary will be in August of 2026. As of right now, there is nobody else that is announced. Obviously, it's still early. The filing deadline in Michigan is in April, so the situation may change, but be that as it may, we'll be ready to go.
That's great. Gino, how has your election to city council changed your life, both personally and professionally?
Well, Doctor, first, thanks for having us here, and it's great to be here with Renis and Sokol. And what an introduction you gave us. I feel like that's a lot on our shoulders to bear, to carry with the introductions that you give us. Secondly, I'll commend you on your background. That's a whole setup that you got there, and you embarrassed all of us, I guess me personally, with the background. It's I think all three of us can say the same thing. American dream, it's alive and well, and nothing more than in my case, for a 16-year-old kid that migrated to US in 2002 to be able to represent 70,000 constituents here in Wiley, Texas as Mayor Pro Tem. It's an honor that I carry with me, to be able to have the trust of the people that I'll make the right decisions together with the council and the mayor. It's something that, gives me a lot of responsibility to work with that. But at the same time, it also gives me responsibility representing my community, my background, my heritage, in a sense that, it paves the way for future leaders like Alana and all others that will become part of decision making, part of political making, part of law setting in the United States, which affects their kids, it affects their grandkids down the road, but it also leads by example that not only this country allows you to make a living for your families, but it also allows you to affect policy decision making in the future. And so I'm thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be amongst all of you guys here. And, it's been inspiring for me every day. I wake up and it's an inspiring day to go into work.
Well, it was great. I was there at your ceremony when you got sworn in, and it was great to see your family there, and it was a proud moment, to see an Albanian-American, start to, ascend the ladders of democracy here in our country, in the United States, and to blend into the fabric of this country. That's what, becoming an immigrant, coming to this country, and as we blend into the fabric, we start to move into these positions. I think our audience doesn't know about, different parts of the country, but it's different in different states, but they don't pay you to do this either. This is like for free that you're doing this, taking time out of your family, out of your life, out of your work to serve your local community as a city councilman.
Yeah, I mean, they don't, but it's an honor to be able to represent them, just because everything I have in my life, it's because of this city, this town that I've grown my kids and been able to be in the town, and how they have taken a kid and a family, that migrated from Kosovo, and we've been here for 13 years now in this town, and how they welcomed us as part of the community, as part of the family. It's an honor for me to represent them. It's an honor for me to be able to hear their thought processes, their struggles, and what we're having to deal with. Our city went from 22,000 people to 70,000 people in a span of 5 years. So challenges come through that, with that. And, I had a choice. I've always been involved in different things. I was part of Chamber of Commerce. I was part of economic development for the city. But I wanted to be part of the process of shaping the city for future. And that comes, when you grow that much, your infrastructure normally comes afterwards, and you're trying to catch up to it. And so if you come through our city today, I think everywhere in North Texas really, but I'll mention our city, you'll see a lot of road work. You'll see a lot of infrastructure that we are investing in, making sure that we handle the needs of all the people that are living here. So it's changed my life. I'm honored to be able to be there and represent them and make the decisions. Not all the decisions that we make and I make are the right ones, but I'm there to listen. I'm there to be able to help and see how I can shape the city where my kids can grow up in a better sense.
That's wonderful. Sokol, I watched your swearing in ceremony online. When you spoke about your parents, you became visibly emotional. Tell us about that moment. What did it mean for you and your family to share in that milestone?
Yeah, Doc. Well, first off, thank you so much for having us, and happy Veterans Day to all our vets out there. They're the true patriots of what we are and stand for as Americans. Doc, clearly your first question right out of the gate wants me to make me cry again. So, all joking aside,
It's like Oprah over here, the show we got going.
Hey, I'm all for it. I like the heavy questions, but that moment meant deeply to me. My parents obviously came here in 1988, fleeing communism in Yugoslavia. We're part of the Albanian diaspora, and as we know from communism and from the dictator Enver Hoxha, to see a son and your only son, and us from Dibra Mav, we like to say Nijal Permal, which is one son for the mountains, to go up there, stand, and take an oath of office. Their sacrifices paid off. It's to see them and to see them wipe their tears away. It's I hope every son and every daughter experiences that and give back to their parents in that way, to let them know that, hey, your sacrifices, they paid off, and they will continue to pay off. And that's what being an Albanian-American as a first generation too is all about. Respecting your parents, being a family-oriented individual, but also taking the things that you learned from their hardships and their struggles and empathize and be compassionate with your residents and with individuals, because at the end of the day, everyone deserves and wants respect. And unfortunately, the climate that we're in right now does not convey that message. And we have to turn the tide back to what it was, of respecting others, their viewpoints, regardless of what they are, regardless of what their background is, regardless about the religious background. Because at the end of the day, we're all fighting for the same thing, ensuring that we're family-oriented individuals. We want to make sure, we want to feel a part of a community, and we want to give back. So for me, and also to see the Albanian community that was there in attendance, it meant the world. I mean, to represent Albania and Albanians that are from the diaspora and also a first generation, it means the world. And there's not enough words in the English dictionary to really describe what it felt like and what it meant. And it's just one of those experiences that you have to experience to truly understand the gravity of the moment.
It's interesting. You mentioned about trying to, create an atmosphere for all sides to get along better, and to try to push back against this this difficult climate of politics we have in our country currently here in the United States. And that's kind of why, our organization is called Albanians for America, because our story, Albanians' story that came to this country, that immigrated to this country, is a bipartisan. It's not a Democrat or Republican. It's a both, and it is something that can unite, I think. I'm not sure if you're a Democrat or Republican, Sokol. I think you're a Democrat, but we've had both Republicans and Democrats, Albanian Americans, on the show, and they all have these great stories, and we all get along very well, and we don't have that that friction. It doesn't matter what party you're with. We're Americans. That's the part we emphasize.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. I'm more in the middle, and as a local individual, there is no party, because
Right.
the individuals who are going to plow your street, it does not matter, and it should not matter if you're a Democrat or Republican, because people need to go to work. People got to take their kids to school. So these are non-political issues. These are things that we have to make sure get done for our community members to make sure we enhance our local economy and grow individuals to be model citizens and make sure that they're giving back and they're contributing to society. So that's how what we do here in local government. We're the hard workers. We want to get stuff done.
That's great. Renis.
They don't pay
Go ahead,
us,
Gino.
and we just get things done.
That's the best way. That's the Albanian way right there.
Renis, what does it mean to you to represent the Albanian-American community in United States public life?
Well, I mean, obviously it means everything. Our community is, and I was so intrigued, and I'm in such agreement with your statement and the very mission of Albanians for America, because obviously, ultimately, that's precisely what this is. This is one of the community. There's a wonderful community, but one of the many communities that make up this great country. We're meshed in the fabric of American society, and our contributions only make sense within that understanding of our larger community, which is America. But to represent our individual community, to represent our fellow Albanians, our fellow Albanian Americans here in the diaspora, it means everything. And obviously, I'm fortunate. My family is all here. My immediate family, my parents, as well as obviously my wife, my children, and my wife's family, and that's sort of that immediate nucleus of the larger community that we have. And in Michigan, we have an immense, it's an immense community of Albanian Americans. We are everywhere, literally. And so to have represented them as an attorney for the last 16 years that I've been practicing as their own personal attorney in their struggles, daily struggles, and sometimes, both with great achievement and sometimes with difficulties, to turn it around and attempt to represent them now in a new capacity means everything. One of the things that I've realized over the course of my practice as an attorney is that as attorneys specifically, we tend to unfortunately put band-aids on problems. We are pragmatic by profession perhaps, but certainly because of we reflect the reality of the issues that we face. And so not too long ago, one day I woke up and I simply had had enough, and I said, I no longer want to put band-aids on problems, realizing that the issues that our community faces are systemic. And in order to address systemic issues, we unfortunately don't necessarily go where I typically tend to go, which is the judicial system. For systemic resolution to systemic issues, we need to go either to the legislative or the executive, which is why I'm running for this particular seat.
Wonderful. And you're from originally Albania, correct?
I am. Tirana, Albania.
Tirana.
Yeah.
And how long has your family been in the United States?
I came first. I came here in 1997. I came as a student, and then I finished my high school in the States, in scenic Charleston, South Carolina. Thereafter, I moved to Michigan, attended college, finished college, law school, and then my family came about 5 years later, I believe. First my brother, then my family. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Wonderful. Yeah, and you have a lot of Albanian Americans in your local town there, or is it just, are you close to Detroit, or how far away from Detroit are you?
This area, Troy, which is where I am right now, where I live, Troy is a suburb of Detroit, and it's about 15, 20 minutes from Detroit. And this area, Troy, Sterling Heights, Rochester Hills, Shelby Township, this is the area where most of our fellow Albanians live. I mean, obviously, we have a huge spread all throughout the metropolitan area. It's the Tri-County area, Oakland, Wayne, and Macomb. But most of our community resides here in this particular area, which is Senate District 9, and this is where the main Albanian churches and on Auburn Road and Rochester Road and Rochester Hills, which is about a mile from where I am, where my office is, and this is where the majority of the community is.
Gino, you've done a lot to help get our organization off the ground as well, Albanians for America. You've really helped the board get things organized and move us along with meeting with local politicians and with on Capitol Hill as well. So how can organizations like Albanians for America help inspire and support the next wave of Albanian-American leaders?
Well, Doc, I think things like this, uh, allowing young Albanians like Renis and my stories, we weren't born here. I came 16 years old in 2002 as an exchange student, similar to what Renis came about. And for them to see that if the opportunity is given to us, they have to understand that their parents have worked as a first Albanians that come here, like Sokol's family came in here. They did anything and everything they could do to set a foundation for their kids and their families to be able to go to better schools, to be able to go to colleges, to be able to go to universities, to be able to set a trend for them to have a better life. And the next step is for some of us that have had the opportunity to go through that, through the sacrifice of our parents and whatnot, to allow them to become policymakers in this country, meaning to reflect policy that affects our kids. We all have to be honest of where our family's grown and how that is going to impact our families for generations. And so we cannot sit behind the wheel and expect other policymakers to make decisions for us while we're always doing work and we're putting in the time and we're putting in the effort and we're being a part of the community. So we also have to give back to society. And I think with local level, that's where you start. You cannot become a congressman overnight. You have to understand how the local politics works. You have to understand how the local policy works. You have to understand how state and county policy works. And then, hopefully with Robert, who I think has a great chance here in Michigan to become our first representative at the Hill, that's how we're going to have to do it. I can correlate this to, and obviously we got a long way to go, but our music pop stars, they didn't start overnight. They started by making a song, making a thing. Our soccer players that represent, even though they play for Switzerland and other countries, they are always representing their heritage and who they are. So for me, it was a twofold type of scenario. One is to affect policy here where we're living, and two, at retrospect, create relationships that will help my family, my parents, my uncles back home in Kosovo, that the story is told truthful and not what Serbia is portraying today in Washington, that they were the victims and we were the aggressor. And so I can go tell them in Washington, but I'll show them that, hey, I'm part of the U.S. policymaking. I'm part of the decision making in U.S. I'm part of this society and this community. Yet at the same time, I also have a hurt for back home that I want to bring up and I want to explain and I want to tell them the story that I came from. So I think it's a twofold issue for me that's always been a part of it. One, I want to affect the future of my kids. Two, I want to represent Albanians and what my country is. And I mentioned Kosovo, but as you know, when we're talking about the Albanians for America, we always mention basically most of the Balkan area and all the issues that we have there. So an organization like Albanian for America is so much needed to promote activists like ourselves here, and to promote good stories that Albanians are doing all over the place, because individually, the Albanians have set the standard in the United States for what the success story is all about. Think about our parents and some of the parents that have been here for many. Alana's parents, for example, her dad works 2 jobs still to be able to help her and her sister to go, Anna is a decorated lawyer, and they have done so much individually to be successful and set their families up that it would be ashamed for us as first generations, for my kids, not to want to do 2 times more than what I've been able to do. And if I can't install that in them, then, I'm failing as a parent.
Yeah, it's such a blessing to be able to do this work for, Albanians for America. We've met so many people, so many Albanian Americans that have great stories. We've had Robert Ljurai, Diamant Husenai from New York. We've met all these Albanian Americans. We have Alana, who's our intern right now, working with us right now, and she's studying hard, very bright. Her sister, like you mentioned earlier, an attorney. And then we have these gentlemen on today, an attorney, a city clerk, and real bright, real interesting, and so it's like I feel blessed really to be able to do this work and to meet these people and to have these experiences with them and to bring them to Albanian American community throughout the country, to see them and to host them on our show so everybody can understand and see. Because what you're talking about, Gino, is that we got a deep bench of great young Albanian Americans coming up, educating, working hard, going for U.S. politics as well. And it's really interesting to see this generation come up and to start to, make their stake and their claim in U.S. history. So it's exciting. I'm really excited about it. You always make that great point about how your children and your children's children are going to be living in this country. They're going to be Americans. They're going to be part of this fabric, and how we have to, as Albanian Americans, take part in that whole process. More of a statement than a question, but
I agree. And we have great stories to tell as Albanians. Our parents have great stories to tell. Because they were so busy not only supporting their families here, but families back home, because they were so busy trying to make sure that their kids are going to school, they're playing sports, they're doing all that, policy making for them was secondary, was something that they never thought about. And a lot of them probably thought that they're going to go back. And, when you realize that my son is an American, his first passport was an American, that I have everything to do with my both loves. One is my kids and one is my country back home. I got to make sure that I'm working for both of them at the same time. I'm making sure that I'm setting the future as a father. My responsibility is to my kids and making sure that they have everything that they're needed. And in order for me to be able to affect change in their life and affect togetherness, like Sokol said earlier, a street, nobody cares who was in position, Republican or Democrat. They want to make sure that, they got water at the house. They want to make sure that they got essentials in the house. And that doesn't come from Washington, that comes from local government. And the second part is, my history and where I'm from and what I've gone through and how much sacrifice has happened back home to be in position that I am today. And that's why I said, United States dream, US dream is alive and well, American dream is alive and well. And to allow people like Renis, like myself, to come in and become a lawyer, represent not only our community like Renis has done and as a lawyer, but to represent all Americans without a judgment if they're Republicans or Democrats. He was able to represent them and protect their innocence or protect their assets. That's what we're all about. That's what we do. We got a great story. Yeah, do we have bad apples? We all do. Every community does. But you take Albanians in one side and a lot of them everywhere. Their success story, it's my father-in-law's success story is 10 times more bigger than I am, right? But policy making wasn't for him. And so that's kind of the thing that I think we have to differentiate, and we have to have people involved and grow.
So Alana, we're going to probably start taking questions pretty soon from the audience. I don't know if they're starting to pile up or what it's looking like right now. I'm gonna go ahead and ask another questions, and if you can just let me know in a few minutes how that's looking, we'll start moving over toward audience participation. Sokol, what message would you give to young Albanian Americans who may be hesitant to get involved in local government or community advocacy?
Start getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. Now, what does that mean exactly? You will be in a lot of difficult situations, but you have to handle it with grace and you got to come prepared. When I started in local politics, my parents wanted, and matter of fact, my parents didn't like the idea of me being involved in politics because of their idea of what government was growing up. I mean, my mother, who I love dearly, said to me on my swearing ceremony, don't be the people's hero. And I chuckled as an American. I said, well, Mom, what do you mean? She said, honey, you'll understand. And unfortunately, we've had some political assassinations these last couple of months, and she would point to the TV and she would just go, give me the motherly look, as in, honey, this is what I'm talking about. And it's very unfortunate, but you got to believe in the American dream. You got to have that confidence that we shouldn't be like that. But for the younger folks, you really have to work hard, and things will not be in your favor when you start off. You're going to have to prove yourself time and time again. You're going to have many, many days where you feel defeated, but that feeling of defeat should not deter you from doing what you're doing, but instead it should motivate you to try even harder, work even harder, to make a name for yourself and to do what you believe is best for not only yourself, for your family, but also for the greater community. As Gino so eloquently put it, you'll run into some bad apples. That's just a given. But how you sidestep that, how you work around that, how you get back up from being down, that's what matters. And it doesn't take overnight. I've been involved in Lakewood since 2015, and I just got elected to a position. Prior to that, I was on the Parks and Recreation Board for 5 years. And a lot of people that come on these things, they talk about all of their wins and stuff like that. But those wins didn't come out of thin air. They've been built on from year after year and from many conversations, many networking events. So it's getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, and being the youngest elected official, it has been difficult at points. The Lakewood is 25% 65 and older, and they see a young buck like me, and they start to question. But that's just the nature of the beast. But that has not deterred me. You got to go out there and you got to explain to the residents, well, this is why we have to do X, Y, and Z, because that is why people elected you in that position in the first place, to eloquently articulate facts and data and why we should approach a situation in this manner opposed to that one. So that would be my advice to the younger generation. For the younger generation that is watching, my door is always open. You could always contact me at Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Sokol Delisi. It's very straightforward, and I'm more than happy to help out and have a conversation and to give back, because we're all in this together. We're all trying to do what's best for us and for our family.
Thanks, Sokol, for offering your time, for helping any young folks that want to maybe pursue politics or ask a question on, when you're young, it's hard to figure out sometimes what the right path is to accomplish a goal, like get into and I always tell a lot of folks when I speak with them, I have friends here locally that are considering running for city council. I always tell everybody, you want to start with your local community leadership program. So many communities offer a leadership program, whether it's through the Chamber of Commerce or through the city itself, or even a youth leadership program. Many times that's a board on a city board. Like you said yourself, you're on the city parks board. I served on the Visitors Bureau board here in my town and on the airport board. And sometimes that's not a huge hurdle to overcome, but that starts your process of building and then getting yourself to maybe your ultimate goal. So it's not as difficult as some might think. There is a path, and it just needs to be kind of spelled out a little bit for them to help them out a bit. So, what do you think, Renis? What kind of advice would you give to some of the youth out there about pursuing a career in politics or in leadership in their communities?
Thank you. Well, I couldn't agree more both with Sokol and Gino and all your statements as well. I represent a small town, which in many ways is, I think, a microcosm of this great country. It has great people who strive every day to be the best they can be, the best neighbors, best friends, best parents. But they, just like elsewhere in the country, they face inordinately immense issues daily. And one thing I've noticed, and this is my humble opinion, but I think you will all agree, is that when it comes to young people, they have a practical and pragmatic approach to solutions and to the issues that they're faced with, perhaps much more so than some of the older generations. I think they've come of age at a time of great progress, of great technology, and they're comfortable and at ease with all of it. And so, by definition, the solutions offers are always, I feel like, the most practical, the most pragmatic, and the most direct to the problems. I've always had in my office, and we're lucky here, there's 11 of us attorneys running around, staff, and the whole 9 yards. But we've always had, I can't remember a single day of my practice in the last 11 years where we haven't had some sort of a legal intern or somebody running around, trying to, follow us, help us, learn from us. Perhaps we learn from them sometimes, and do all that work. And it's been, rewarding for us, perhaps more so than for them. But I think we've all benefited from it. So engagement in our community, I think I agree with you that to engage at the local level is critical, absolutely critical. And here in Michigan, we have every program known to mankind for everyone that wishes to be involved. And I'm a believer in, I believe it was Aristotle that said that the price that we pay for not being engaged in politics is to be governed by our lessers. So I think unless you do it, you're resigning yourself to living under the tyranny of lesser men. So we definitely don't want to do that.
Your experience as a city attorney, is probably giving you a lot of insight, obviously, on preparing you for this election that you're about to get into. Now, you're running for a state senate seat, which is, pretty high seat. It's right next step after that usually is, a congressman or something. So tell me a little bit about, what you're feeling and what you're going through and what you're doing to prepare for that. And how much knowledge base do you need to have on a statewide understanding compared to the local knowledge you've been doing this whole time as a city attorney?
Sure. Excellent question. And truth be told, the amount of information required is immense. And obviously, you need to be able to be versatile with respect to so many different areas above and beyond the usual comfort level, which we have as someone, that I would have, and all three of us would have as people who are involved at a local level. But I imagine that Sokol was correct in his earlier statement that our local issues and the resolutions of those local issues lend themselves to solutions that are not necessarily political in nature, that don't necessarily ascribe themselves easily to Democrat versus Republican resolutions, but rather require pragmatism and require merit, right? And require honesty in dealing and transactions. And I think that when applied to the state level achieves those very goals. As an attorney, I'm fortunate that I'm involved in everything under the sun over the course of my practice. I represent our Albanian-American community here, and that has taken me literally everywhere. And politics and my profession go somewhat hand in hand, obviously. And over the many years of my practice, I've been involved at every level, both professionally at the state level, but also in politics and helping out with every race known to mankind, campaigns and the like. In our community, we've had, this particular seat has, at the last cycle, 115,000 of our fellow Americans voted for in that election, which is, not an insignificant number. 260,000 residents inhabit the seat. And the gentleman that prevailed against my friend Padma Kupa, who ran her campaign out of my office, only did so by 795 votes. And given the changes that occurred at the last after the last cycle in the district, if she were to have run the same race against the now incumbent, she would have prevailed today. So that dynamics and understanding those dynamics obviously is important. I'm additionally fortunate that I was a political science undergrad, so this is somewhat in my DNA, or at least it's my passion. So this, that's right, we the people. The state level race is, not something to be trifled with. Obviously, it is. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of energy. It's a major race. Again, 260,000 people living in the district, 150,000 voting. If we're doing our usual math, which is $10 per vote, we're talking about a race in the millions, right? As far as the what it takes to prevail. But I'm a planner, if anything, if nothing else. And so I think I got into this particular race not because it was both a stretch and a challenge. We didn't necessarily want to look at simply, something else that perhaps could have been more achievable, but because I'm already involved, I feel like I have so much to bring to this particular seat, which will be a stretch, and it will be, but it's eminently achievable.
Michigan is such an important, state now, especially in the presidential elections. It's been such a bellwether, and it's such a it used to be Florida and it used to be Ohio, that the states that they fought for so aggressively, each party. Now it's come down to, Michigan, obviously, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin too. We have such a large community of Albanians. I think it's the second most populous Albanian community in the country, if I'm not mistaken. I used to think it was Chicago and Illinois, but I believe it's Michigan. I've been corrected. And the ability for the Albanian community now, Albanian-American community in Michigan, to have an effect on which way maybe the next presidential election might fall is tremendous right now. So it's and we saw that in the last cycle. I think you saw a lot of people from both sides coming in trying to cater to the Albanian-American community and to try to. So you guys wield this kind of really intense higher level of power, I think, than most other communities maybe throughout the country.
Absolutely. I think in all of these races, and it is, we're fortunate to have at this particular cycle to have two of us, right? Robert running for Congress, and a very small portion of his district overlaps mine, and then myself running for state senate. And it's interesting, but in our analysis of both races, but particularly I can speak for my race, obviously, but in both races, our community will have a disproportional impact. As indicated in my race, the gentlelady that ran last time against the now incumbent lost by 795 votes over the course of 115,000 fellow Americans having voted. That is obviously within the margin of error. That all that and it used to be, out of all the cities that I mentioned earlier, which comprise this particular district, it used to be the thinking that Rochester Hills, a community just north of us here, that was the path. You had to win Rochester Hills in order to win. If you look at the actual numbers, Sterling Heights, which is a city where my parents live, for example, is actually where the gentlelady that ran against the non-incumbent actually she trailed by 3,000 votes. It just so happened that yours truly, being an attorney for this community, solely on account of my list of clients, I have about 3,000 of my fellow Albanian Americans residing in the community, just that I know that I've represented over the last 16 years. So it is disproportional the impact that we are going to have on ourselves, right? When between undergrad and law school, I worked in Washington, D.C. for then Senator Carl Levin for a hot minute before I started law school. And when I did that, he served at a time when the senator from Ohio was a gentleman by, if I remember, his last name was Voinovich, Senator Voinovich. Served by way of background, otherwise a very nice man. I just seem to recall that in his chambers, there was a constant stream of everyone from Serbia and other Slav republics of the former Yugoslavia every day. And it made perfect sense to me because they're going naturally to one of their own, a member of their own community, to seek whatever, whether it be address of whatever specific issue, a thought, a compliment, whatever it may be. It is long overdue for us to have this kind of representation everywhere if we're to build up this community, grow, make a change, make a contribution to this great country that we all know and love.
It's great comment, great statement. Alana, how's everything looking for questions from the audience?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So our first question is from Besnik Hajiai, and he just wanted to know, what can the organization do to help and coach other Albanians in pursuing politics in Texas and elsewhere in the U.S.?
Any one of you guys are welcome to take that question.
I think that's probably all Gino.
I think, I just want to take it just one step backwards. We're so wired up as a community for family success on our own, right? And one of the biggest things that I've learned while being in the office and being on some of the boards that I've been, collaboration is key. Not all the time the votes are going to go based on how you think the votes should go. And you have to understand that once that decision is made as a city, you move forward and you do everything possible for that project to be successful. And so in my early ages, you're a little bit more of, personal, wanting to achieve things in a one type of level, where these positions require a lot of collaboration and a lot of understanding. Doesn't matter what party you belong to, doesn't matter what seat you all have. I may need a senator to push a bill to protect something locally that we're doing. And so collaboration with every step of the way, it's such an important factor overall. Go back to how to help an Albanian. As an organization, I think we promote some of these, a lot. I pulled the book Renis because my wife is a graduate of political science and she teaches actually in college political science. So a lot of our friends say she teaches you everything you know, and I tend to agree. She's smarter than I am.
And better looking too.
I did well.
Did.
And so, I think it starts as an organization. I think it starts with seminars like this and one-on-ones with us. I think all three of us, and including Doc, who's been part of political making for a long time, we can always guide you through it. But I think the first step to wanting to be in politics, you have to be involved with the party that you feel like you're most comfortable with, don't matter Democrat or Republican. In Texas, you probably want to be Republican. Sorry, Sokol. But you want to be part of the party. You want to understand where your values rely on. And then secondly, you want to start with local and be on the board. And that's where you learn your collaborative efforts. That's where you learn, the decision-making process of how we will affect Parks and Rec, for example. We don't think, well, Parks and Rec covers, but Parks and Recs in my area covers everything to do with parks, with all the fields, with everything else that affects your kids every single day, right? And how that impacts economic development, how some of those baseball tournaments coming in to the city, bring those tax dollars to the city, and how you don't have to raise money on house taxes, because you're bringing in enough income from there. And so these are things that I think you can start on step one, and then you kind of find the way of which board fits you the best. You create a collaboration with other elected officials, and as you see as you go, politics after you jump on the board may not be for you. And that's may be something. I call politics like a drug. Once you're in it, they don't let you go. If you're involved long enough, there's going to come a time and a place that it becomes part of your life every day, that you just want to make sure that you give back. And I don't think in terms of achievement, I think is, where is my impact the best suited for? And, for Renis, today's Senate, we're lucky in Renis, and I'm sure, Doc, you mentioned Michigan. We have Susanna Shkreli, who leads a big department in the state of Michigan, who was appointed by Governor Whitmer. And, Susanna was one of the very first Albanians that kind of was seeking office and was going for office. And she's a great friend of mine. And we're two different spectrum of politics world, but yet we collaborate on understanding as a community, but also as U.S. politics. So for him, I think it's very, for the question that we were asked, reach out to us. We'll walk you through the steps of becoming a part of where you live first, and seeing if this is really something that you want to pursue, and seeing that this is something that you kind of want to see through.
And Doc, if I may, to add on to Gino, sure. I agree with him 110% on that. It's also having Americans understand who Albanians are. Albania has just recently, if you think about it, has just recently gotten the map in the last 30 years, right? Before 40 years of communism and isolationism. By 2030, we're expected to hopefully be in part of the European Union. When we start to inform Americans who Albanians are, what we stand for, what our values are, you will get to see a better opening and a better networking event and things along that nature. Because right now, a lot of people, they say my name and they go, "Oh, where are you from?" And I say, "Oh, I'm Albanian." And they go, "Oh, where?" They scratch their head and I go, "Okay, it's, north of Greece." And, oh, okay. So the moment we start, as Albanian Americans, start educating other Americans who we are, we will have a better and easier time, hopefully, to spread our message and to get the word around that we're just, we're just like you. We fight for the same values. We believe in the same values. We believe in democracy. So, having that kind of strategy, having that kind of messaging, and having it done through informal conversations truly does go a long way. And at the end of the day, we all are representatives of Albanians and Albania in some form or fashion.
Brilliant point. Alana, what do you have next for us?
Awesome. Our next question is from Ortion Kadiu, and he asked, what is the message to the Albanian community in the actual divisive political climate we are in the United States? Is that to not damage the Albanian interests in the Balkans?
Repeat it one more time.
Sorry. So essentially, Ortion is asking, what is the message to the Albanian community, given this divisive political climate that is currently going on in the United States, so we do not damage Albanian interests in the Balkans?
Dennis, I'll start and I'll let you finish me up. I mentioned earlier, but local politics in the United States and what you represent and what party fits you the best, it's something personal that affects you in the United States. Now, we all have our beliefs and we all have what we stand for, because if we don't have what we stand for, then we can't represent anybody else, right? We have to have our beliefs and our thought processes and why we're running and what we think we can change and what we think we can do. And every elected officials from all sides of the spectrum have their own beliefs and their own thought processes that they bring to Washington, which Washington then reflects on how the Balkans and specifically our area, our Albanians affects. And so I think for us and as an organization, Doc and I have talked a lot about this, and personally for me, but I think for Doc too. It's important that we work with all sides. It's important that we make them understand that no matter where they stand politically in the United States, I may disagree with them. Albania and Kosovo and Montenegro and part of Macedonia and all those parts that have Albanians and represent them, they all have one goal and one goal only. They don't look at you as a Democrat or Republican. They look at you as the United States, just like I looked at them, when they liberated Kosovo at 16 years old with the patch. The patch of the United States soldier in their shoulders was the biggest thing that I could have seen after the war in my life, because it signified hope. It signified life. And so, and I apologize, it's a part of the United States. Albanians have an eye towards it as the savior for our countries, because they know what has happened in those places for many generations and how our ancestors really have always been split, and how the victims, people today, they don't know where the significant others are or their loved ones are because of the wars that they have gone through for many years. And so for me, as a representative here in Texas, I proudly wear my badge of Albanians everywhere I go. And I have no problem doing that. I'm a Republican. I will support a Republican. But when it comes to Balkans and Kosovo and any Albanian issues, I'm all about conversation and representation, because I think that benefits the United States and vice versa.
So as part of my campaign, we have a robust social media presence, obviously, as you can imagine, and the entire teams of people doing all sorts of work, God's work. And well, one thing that we started noticing was that my mother was getting was commenting on every single post that we had, no matter where it was, right? And it was usually a long diatribe of like my son, always in Albanian, of course. And it was always a long diatribe of like, my son is the greatest thing since sliced bread. This is unbelievable. Like, can you believe it? And it was at one point we coincide, both my brother and I are having lunch over at our parents' house, and my brother's like, "Mom, it's like, what are you doing?" And they go into a back and forth with one another about like, is it appropriate? Is it necessary? Like, are we winning votes? Are we losing votes? What the hell are we doing? And I think, talking about wisdom from an Albanian woman, my mom says, listen, we have to speak about the things that we believe in, right? Without compromising our values, but we have to speak to them no matter what they are. And I take that to answer Mr. Kadio's question. We have to speak to the things that are near and dear our hearts, right? Without compromising our values, without compromising our focus either. Obviously, we're running in the United States. Obviously, we're doing work in the United States for our community, which is the larger community, right? The United States. It's a community made up of all sorts of people. It's made up of, your average Americans, which are 6 out of 10 are of German background. And then everybody else, right? Here in my community, we have 40% foreign-born Southeast Asian, Indian, Pakistani, Bengali. And then we have Macedonians, Serbs, Romanians, Bulgarians, everybody and their mother is here. Obviously, if we speak to them about Albanian issues, or if we go send my mother over there to win those votes, perhaps that's not going to work. But if we are who we are, and yet deliver the larger point, speak to the things that unite us, which are those family values that we are so, that are so entrenched into each one of us here in this quintet. I think we can do no wrong.
That's a great answer. Alana, do you have more questions?
Yes, we have a couple more. Our next question is from Burim Regai. First of all, he says, thank you for all of this. And Gino, thank you for your dedication and commitment in running for the Texas State Senate. when talking about contribution to our adopted country. Doc represents the best of us all, served our country in the best and most honest way. Sir, thank you for your service. And he says it's also inspiring to see a member of the Albanian community striving to make a difference in government, and appreciates your efforts in representing our community. And to all three participants, he just wanted to know, do you feel that there is an additional responsibility knowing that besides representing your constituents, you represent Albanians from all over the world?
Simple. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because as I said earlier, you know, when people say my name, the immediate aftermath is, where are you from, or where is your family from? So it's definitely a responsibility that I hold near and dear to my heart, and I'm happy and I'm proud to say that at our board meeting next week on the 18th, the village board of Lincolnwood and I will be presenting a proclamation for Dita Flamurit, the Day of the Flag, on the 28th to demonstrate and to start to put Albania and Albanians on the map, to show and to let everyone know that we are just like you. We want to do great. We want to prosper. We want to have the freedoms and independence that this country has given to not only my family, but to me, myself, and so many other communities in Lincolnwood. I mean, Renis talks very well. I mean, here in Lincolnwood, we speak 56 different languages in our middle school. So it's only a 2.69 square mile area of land. So to have that many different languages, it just goes to show that this is what America is all about, and this is what the American dream is. So without a shadow of a doubt, definitely there is a high responsibility, and especially for me being a youngster, to push and promote the Albanian community and the Albanian culture to everyone that's around.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Sokol is absolutely correct. And I think, Albanian-Americans in America have contributed to every field that I'm aware of: law, business, medicine. We have doctors, public service. Obviously, here we have, two outstanding members that are already contributing to our community. But obviously much more is needed, and representing our community, that is both our larger community, but also our Albanian-American community, I think shows, and what it means is that, identity and patriotism are not in conflict. You can both be proudly Albanian and fully American.
Great point. Gino, you got anything to add to that?
I couldn't have said anything better than what the two Renis and Sokol said. I mean, it's an honor to be Albanian and to do U.S. politics, and so I'll leave it at that.
Alana, what else? Other questions do you have?
So our next question is from Luli Elezi, and she says, I feel like we are all organized at the community league level with various Albanian organizations. However, how do we then unite as one voice, a more powerful voice at the national level?
I said it earlier. I think one of the reasons why this organization was formed during the war in Kosovo, we had a cause that united the Albanians with one voice because genocide was happening. And once that kind of dwindled down, I think Albanians in the US took their foot off the gas for a little bit, just because of the fact that now we have our own folks representing their own countries in Washington, and so they will do the majority of work. So no organized level in Washington was advocating for Albania and for Kosovo and for Albanian rights. And, politics has changed since then as well. And the members of Congress and members of Senate and the Hill are totally different. I think there's only a handful of them that know what exactly has happened during that time back home. So lately with this organization, I think with some of the other organizations that have come together, one of the biggest ways is decentralizing the advocacy, I believe. We all make our impact in our own ways, in our own communities, and our own communities are represented by Congress and Senate at the Hill. So if we're all doing our part and talking to our congressmen, and local senators that represent us at the Hill, we're making a contribution. We're telling them that you represent me at the Hill, not only as Albanian American and not only with the American issues, but here's what hurts my heart as well. And this is the part that hurts my heart. And here's the true story of it. And so one of the things that as Albanians for America, we've been doing is coordinating our efforts with local organizations throughout the United States and sharing the message that, hey, here's what we're hearing from Washington in advocacy level. Here's what we're talking to them about Albania and our issues back home. And here's how you can talk to your local congressman, your local senator, and how much impact that will make. And so when they're talking about Northern Balkans and they're talking about Kosovo in particular, or Albania and the EU, or Kosovo and NATO and things like that. Or Doc and I met with the Preševa Valley folks that traveled to Texas. What an impactful meeting that was. It really reminded me where we were in 1998, 1999 in Kosovo. Actually, it reminded me 1995, the struggles that we had up to the war. That's what they're doing right now. They're being wiped out of their houses. If you don't show up to your houses for a couple of months, they come by, they don't see any lights, they take your address off, they take your name out. So you don't exist. Somebody's wiping you off from the face of the earth.
They called it administrative ethnic cleansing.
So ability to share these stories with local communities that are in different regions and part of them, collaborating it. Not all of us can go to Washington at all times and have these discussions, but starting decentralizing that advocacy, I think is the right way to go, because we're all busy individuals and doing our own thing at different level. But you have a right to go to your congressman and senator and tell them what you are hurting in terms of Northern Balkans and specifically the countries that we just talked about. And that will make your effort millions of times more effective than us going and knocking on a door in Washington, because you're their constituents, you're their vote, and they're asking you for their vote. Just like Renis and Sokol and I ask you for your votes locally, they're asking you for that vote. And if you tell them what they need to earn your vote, I think that can be a part of the conversation.
Gino's absolutely correct. And I think Luli asked actually a critically important question and I think it impacts all of us, but particularly the three of us who are in these kinds of, who have placed ourselves in these positions with respect to our candidacies. I think to answer her question, though, I would say that local positions and local leadership, as Sokol said earlier, is often the first step to national visibility. And I think unity multiplies influence. So when we speak with one voice, we don't only strengthen our advocacy, but we also command respect in broader political circles. And I think division, by definition, dilutes power. Unity magnifies it. So our community's collective story, and this is a long, broad, deep story, obviously, that includes Albania, Kosovo, and all the regions above and beyond Albania and Kosovo who are full of Albanians with these struggles. I think that collective story of endurance, faith, progress, tribulations, I think it becomes a shared force for representation. And that is the message that ultimately each of us would carry with them, innately, just by virtue of who we are, without having to force us in any way, shape, or form, the way that we've had to, as a community, force those who don't know who we are, don't know where we come from, and have no appreciation for our community's struggle and history. So I think important question, and thank you for asking.
I concur with the two gentlemen. I have nothing else to add. They said it a lot better than I would. So, and I'm not going to be your average typical politician talk just to talk. So I think they did a great job there.
Shocking. I thought you were going to go on and on.
Thanks, Doc.
Alana, do you have any more questions?
Yes, we have 3 more questions. So,
Okay, go for it.
our next question is from Emin Ekriu, and he asks, I have always wanted our community to run for public office. First, I want to congratulate these gentlemen for stepping forward to help this nation become a better place. Politics is not easy. And the question that he has is, he wants to know what drove you guys to become a public servant and what challenges have you faced?
I'll let Sokol go for it.
All right, thank you. I mean, I remember growing up. My dad would come home and he would fall asleep on the couch, and I'd quickly grab the controller, whatever we were watching. I'd turn on CNN, Wolf Blitzer, and I'd just see the rockets going to the Iraq War, and I just thought, like, whoa, what is happening? What is going on? So for me, it started when I was very young, and as a local kid, I'd go to the one of the parks here close by my house, and every day for about a week, the water fountain wasn't working. One day it was super hot. I got super pissed off like a true Albanian, picked up the phone, called the parks department. I said, hey, the water fountain's not working. Mind you, I was about 7, 8 years old, had a Mickey Mouse voice, left them a voicemail. And I not joking whatsoever. The following day when I went, that water fountain started working. And I thought, holy smokes, something that small, just by picking up the phone call and leaving a voicemail, could lead to something so big by putting on a water fountain. I was like, I have to be involved in some way, shape, or form. And years later, I ended up working for the Parks and Recreation Department. After that, I got appointed to the Parks Board, and then I made my way to actual elected office. So for me, that's kind of how I got started into politics. And it literally started by something as so stupid as the water fountain not working, and actually trying to do things of that nature where, okay, time to start looking at ways and how to communicate what we're doing with our water line replacements and things of that nature, repaving roads. So that's how I kind of started. The biggest challenge for me has been so far is there is a lot that gets done at the local government level. Everyone pays so much attention to the federal level, but you really have to know your stuff when you come to the local level, because think of local government as an onion. The more you peel it back, the more there is to it. And oftentimes the more you pull back an onion, the more you cry. And that's sometimes what it feels like when you try to learn what local government is all about, especially zoning laws, or you're talking about budgets and the property tax levies and things of that nature. So the challenge is how can you understand these very broad niche topics and articulate that in a way that the average folk that doesn't pay attention to local politics every single day like we do, get them on board, have them understand. So it's a little bit of the communication, but also breaking down these complex concepts to the average folk for them to understand and for them to be involved and to participate.
I mentioned earlier, and I won't go too far into it, but I'll tell you a different story. But I mentioned that obviously law and politics are, sort of flip side of the same coin. So because of my involvement over my career as an attorney, it's natural that I've been so close, in such close proximity to politics, that it starts to rub off after a while. With respect to the current race, this particular race, obviously I was very much aware of the seat and the gentleman that serves in that seat right now. But one day I was in bed reading the Detroit Free Press, which is our main newspaper. I'm reading it on my phone, as I do every morning. And there was an article by a bunch of students that had done an investigation, which said that there were, it talked about the 4 top recipients of lobbyist money in the state of Michigan. And my state senator, the person that I'm running against, was one of those 4. And obviously, I immediately, I focused and I, began to read, and I started thinking I guess as an attorney would, which was, I'm like, they must have given him millions. He's an insurance salesman, and he's responsible for our insurance law in Michigan, which is not the greatest thing ever. And I thought they must have given him millions. And then I keep reading, and I find out that he's actually a top 2 recipient of lobbyist money in Michigan. And uh, I discovered that he had received $38,000 over the course of 4 years. So then I'm perplexed, because I thought to myself, well, they bought him for the price of a sandwich. And it was not a good sandwich either. It was probably something, less than grand. And so I turned over to my wife, who's still sleeping in bed, and I I said, I'm running against him. This is ridiculous. I'm going to do it. And she's half asleep, but my wife is the brains of the operation. She is a professor of chemical engineering at the University of Michigan. So she knows numbers better than I do. And as I'm mouthing off to her about 38,000 over 4 years, she asked me, well, how many senators are there in the state of Michigan? I said 38. And of course, I mentioned there's only one attorney in there, and out of 38 senators. She says, can you do me a favor? She asked, how much will this cost us? And I said, well, it's going to be $1 million raise. It's like we have to pony up 250,000 of our own to make a dent into it. And she does a calculation in her mind and says, well, you know what? I've got a better solution for you. Do me a favor, get $10,000 times 20 senators, 200,000. You'll save 50, and they'll do your bidding anyway. So you're going to do great. Why waste the time? But obviously, this isn't wasting time. This is what we do because we want to contribute to our community. We want to contribute to and do so well for us. And the difficulties which are natural, and that was the question, the difficulties which are natural and come along with our desire to want to serve, desire to want to run for these positions and serve our community, they all pale in comparison to the rewards that we get by being in these offices, by serving our constituents. And obviously, both Gino and Sokol can attest to this far better than I can. I see it from the perspective of an attorney looking at elected leaders in the community that I represent, and I think stressful and difficult and thankless as it sometimes is, nonetheless, it is immensely gratifying to do the bidding and the work on behalf of your fellow Americans and Albanian-Americans. I think it's great work.
It's a great answer. Alana, next question, and I'll tell you, Sokol, I love the water fountain story. It's an excellent story.
Our next question is from Diamant Hussenai, who is actually a panelist for us in August. So Diamant says hello to Doc and the guests and congratulates y'all on your success, hard work, and passion for public service. And he wants to know what the most rewarding part of your public service careers has been, and that he wants y'all to know that he's proud to fight side by side with them up here in New York City for the common good and to give Albanians a voice.
Go ahead, Gino.
Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Yes, no worries. So the amount would like to know what the most rewarding part of your public service careers has been.
First and foremost, hello, Diamant, and congratulations on filing to run for Congress. You're taking a behemoth in New York, but I think it's someone that, she should be running for a different country, not this country, with her thought processes. And I'll leave it at that. That's as much as politics I'll get into. You make us proud, and your success story, the way I know it, it's what makes you unique to that position. And I'm very, very proud to call you a friend. And I wish you nothing but success, and you'll have all the help you can from Texas. The most rewarding part have been the ability to see my interjection into how this city is being shaped overall. And like Sokol says, by the way, I got to go tomorrow and make sure no fountain is not running because I may get a call.
Thank
but
you. Good.
I'm going to go around and make sure. But it's rewarding to see the ability, how the policy affects everyone. And in both questions, what Diamant asked, rewarding and challenging is that when you're making these budgetary decisions, as Sokol said earlier, you're thinking about, if I go this, will that move a family out of their home? Will that family be priced out of their home because of the tax value and where we at? But how will it affect this city running for a long period of time? How will it affect a public service safety officer, if it's a fire department or a police officer? How will that affect them and their families if I don't do a 3% raise? And so these are such an integral decisions, and we all live in this community, so them personally. And you're having to make a decision here at the high level, which becomes such a difficult part, because where do you go with it? And how do you navigate through it? And that brings me back to the collaboration level of being able to collaborate with your city staff and your, other council members, and ability to find the right solution that not only doesn't price anyone from the home from tax purposes, but also ability to help support our people that are serving this community. It's such a migration that, we go through hours and hours of it. Even after, council meetings in my house, I'm running numbers, I'm running things, and it's rewarding to come out and see the city prosper and become, we live, Dr. Light and I live in Collin County. Collin County has been one of the fastest growing counties in the whole United States. We get 200 people a day moving in Collin County. And so it's enormous, the growth that we have. And so these are things that really are important to us and what we're doing.
I think I'm going to give an answer that I think is specific to both this panel and to Mr. Hussein himself. He's going to appreciate it. Here's the answer. Even though I don't know him, and I congratulate him on his run as well. I am a Democrat. I'm running on the Democratic ticket. And part of the conversations that I'm having throughout this community are absolutely nothing short of amazing. So most of our fellow Albanians in Michigan do tend to trend on the Republican side. Obviously, it's by no means uniform, but they certainly do. And it's interesting, and I'll tell you the briefest little story. When I made my announcement, I had one of my friends, a state representative, who was one of the speakers, and she leaned rather heavily on the Democratic Party platform in her speech. And she notices a room full of our fellow Albanians, among others. And at the end, she says, I didn't seem to get a rise much out of the room. And of course, I was going to be gracious about it, because she had been very gracious in coming and speaking at the event. And I said, well, I'm sure it was just a perception. But then she continued on, hung around, and started talking to everybody. And then she got conversation after conversation, and she's had that experience in our events thereafter, where she heard from every single one of them, like, well, no, I'm a Republican. And then she would say, well, why are you here? Well, I'm here because he's here, and we're supporting our fellow Albanian-American. And those conversations that I'm having all throughout our community have been nothing short of amazing. Over the course of my work, obviously, I get to see people usually they're not having a good day when they're coming to see me. Something's happened, they need help. I'm not usually marrying people, so the event is usually a somber affair. And the only good part of our interactions, my interactions over the course of my work, is usually at the very end, when we're finally done with whatever issue that we're dealing with, and we finally resolve it, or whatever the case may be. Well, this is very entirely different by nature. As I've gone throughout the community, basically rekindling, having the same, sort of like a conversation with the same individuals, but now of different character conversations. It's been so rewarding to see that this community supports its own no matter what. And I think that has been not shocking, not surprising, but just a breath of fresh air to know that the support exists out there, and the recognition, because along with that support comes the recognition that this is important stuff, it is necessary. We need to do whatever it takes to get people, our members and representatives of our community, in these positions, regardless of where they come from, what beliefs, what political beliefs, whatever it may be. And that's why sort of those concepts of old Albanian concepts, Padalin fe, krahina ide, without any distinctions based on religion, faith, or belief, that is alive and well in this community, and that has been absolutely, absolutely phenomenal.
It's great. Alana, we're coming up on an hour and a half, so we're getting pretty much close to cutoff time. Do you have many more questions?
So I have two more questions.
So we'll
And
just go ahead and ask those, and if you guys don't mind giving a couple quick answers, and then we'll get to the end of the show.
awesome. So our first question asks, what are you doing to invite young Albanians to be part of your campaigns?
I think from a local level standpoint, there's really not a lot of campaigning going on. So mostly you're going to concentrate on the local Albanians that live within the district that you're representing within the city. But from the perspective of Albanians for America and a national cause, I know Doc has been working really hard on placing Albanians that are in DC within congressional offices as interns, so they can tell the story and they can work and they can see the political making of how US politics is done in DC, and they can gain that experience that potentially one day not only be in Washington but be a big part of the administration. And so I think Doc has done a great job with Albanians for America with that, and working with congressional folks to allow them to be able to be placed within congressional offices at their state level. So if you're in Michigan or anywhere really in the United States, please reach out to Doc, send your resume. Doc has the contacts of congressional folks that will accept our interns, Albanian interns, and gain that valuable experience overall.
Y'all have anything else to add to that?
Gino hit it on the nail on that. Nothing to add.
I agree.
Alana, what's the next one?
So our last question is from Edon Shachiri, and they ask, I'm a proud card-carrying member of Albanians for America. I also represent a 501c3 nonprofit, the largest Albanian-American organization in Illinois, serving tens of thousands across the state. What's been missing in our community is organized political leadership. From your perspective, what can we do at the local level as nonprofits to begin mobilizing our youth, building structure, and cultivating civic engagement? I'm especially interested in concrete examples or lessons we can take from communities like Texas that have succeeded in turning community energy into political representation.
First and foremost, thank you, Don, for what you do. It's not easy to run a nonprofit organization, specifically in our community. It's a tough part of the job. I think that's what prepares us to run anything politically that we want to do. But I think, and again, I go back to earlier, we said it, where we're so focused on creating our own community center, creating and bringing all the Albanians together, doing that. But reach out to your leadership, reach out to your state and federal leadership. Allow them to come into your Sunday schools, allow them to come into your gatherings and events, and have them see how together you guys are, what you guys are doing, how they can help you with the community center, and be a part of that whole community. And then in that respect, you'll build leaders because they will see leadership and what it looks like, what it takes to be a congressman and a senator in a government overall. And bring them over, reach out to them. They're happy to go to these big events. They're happy to meet with them. They're happy to have these discussions. Again, they get elected by votes, and every community center represents votes, and every community center represents issues for them that they need to handle. And so they want to reach out, they want to know all these. So reach out to your local and state level leaders, talk to them about state issues, talk to them about federal issues, and then thirdly, talk to them about the issues that you have representing as an Albanian. And I think that's really where the advocacy starts, and that's the most strongest advocacy as Albanian Americans we can ever have, because that's being done at a local level that will impact the federal level.
I think I'm going to give you the best news all day, Adon. Thank you for the work that you do. I do something that I think we all need to do. Every time anybody comes to my office and wants to start a new nonprofit, right, and ask me for advice, I stop them. I say, absolutely not. I will not do that kind of work. In this community of ours, we need to coalesce around the nonprofits that we have in order to make them successful, and the organizations that we have in order to make them successful, as opposed to trying to replicate so that we could always be large and in charge, which perhaps this community has plenty of leadership to boot, and we don't necessarily need to just like keep replicating it ad nauseum. So if a nonprofit such as yours is doing great work and is already succeeding, is out there, already the largest nonprofit, that is fantastic. Here in Michigan, I can attest we have a few of those. But then for every few that are ultimately, supremely successful, and I'm sure that's the same case in Texas and Illinois, that we have 100 that are either defunct or about to be defunct, who consists of one or two members, and that's it. And it's wasted effort. We need to coalesce around one another. We need, unity breeds strength. Obviously, in the political realm, in order to have any impact whatsoever, you need to show numbers, and the more we do show, the better it is. So whether it be Albanians for America, your organization, I mean, kudos to you. Thank you for what you do, and whatever we can do to help out, we should, because that's the work that needs to happen.
And I'd be a fool not to mention how great of a guy Adon is, and as a part of the AACI community and a member there. He's done a fantastic job, and keep up the good fight. And for the Albanians that are living in Illinois, we do have a lot of groups, and I will say something that's a little bit challenging and a little bit thought provoking, but I have to say it. The problem that we are facing here in Illinois is that we have too many groups, and when you have too many groups, sometimes and you have too many hands in the cookie jar, there is no cookie to begin with. And would Amazon be successful if Amazon had 20 different groups? I don't think so. So as Renis just said, he's absolutely right. We have to coalesce. We have to go under one umbrella, and within that one umbrella, we ought to break up into. We can break up, but at the end of the day, we have to go up to the top of that group to ensure that the values and missions are aligned, and we are all on the same playing field. We understand that each section and each region of Albania has its own history. Absolutely, they do. But we can learn from each other. And at the end of the day, we are all Albanians. It does not matter if you're from North Macedonia, from Montenegro, or Albania itself. We're all fighting for the same thing. We're all trying to do it what's best. Unfortunately, we don't need to always have titles to make an impact. Something so little could be done for X, Y, and Z situations and issues. So Don, thank you for the question, and I'm hoping that with this newer generation that's coming in Illinois, and realizing and not trying to repeat the wheel that has been created from the prior generations that came before us, I'm optimistic, and I know folks from Texas and Michigan are willing to help out and do what's best for the people of Illinois and the Albanians of Illinois.
Doug, I
Thank you.
just want to add
Go ahead.
I want to add one more thing. I am sitting here at the position I have because of the Albanian-American community here in Texas, and the foundation that they laid in being together, and how successful they were, that no matter the region, no matter the religion, no matter any of that, they were first Albanians, and they were able to create a community center that we have today. And so the ability to be together, and the ability to one call, if it's earthquake in Albania, or if it's a wedding somewhere else, they're all together no matter what. And they're not asking, they're saying, what do we need to do? And I think more of that needs to happen everywhere through the United States. There's committees within the organizations that you can create for specific issues that you want to handle as an individual. Not all the organization needs to handle that specific issue. You can have each committee that you want to be a part of, the issue that touches you the most. But as a whole organization, you're working with preserving your culture, preserving your language, preserving your understanding, and how to merge within the United States culture and what this country has allowed us to be. So, as Sokol said, as Renis says, we're all three here because of what Albanians have done prior to us and how much more we can do because of what we're learning and how we're growing and how we're grown up to be. So I just want to give them thanks to everyone that has contributed on all of our success, because I don't get the opportunity, and I don't think any of us get the opportunity if the first ones did not set the step on the stone of the successful stories that they had on giving and being part of the community.
Thank you to the audience for the questions. We are at the end of our show. I'm a lucky person to be able to host this show with these great gentlemen. They got great stories. I'm glad I got to share it with the Albanian-American community. And from the ashes of war and the weight of communism to public office, advocacy, and leadership in America, Sokol Delisi, Renis Nushaj, and Gino Mulliqi represent far more than personal success story. They embody the strength, perseverance, and unity of the Albanian spirit and the promise of what we can achieve when we choose service over silence. Thank you, Sokol, Renis, and Gino, for joining us today. And thank you for your dedication to public service. Every Albanian American is proud of your courage, your leadership, and your representation of our shared values and our heritage. We wish you continued success in all that lies ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doc. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you to Alana
Thank you.
Tenai for co-hosting and being a great intern at AFA. We can't do it without you. And here at Albanians for America, our mission is to amplify stories like these to inspire, connect, and empower the next generation of Albanian American leaders. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, share it with your community, and follow AFA across all platforms. Together, we'll keep building bridges between generations, between nations, and between the ideals of freedom and civic responsibility. Thank you for joining us. And until next time, Miro Pavshim.
Miro Pavshin. Faleminderit.